Welcome back to What Problem Are You Solving? Retrospective. Here we are, gonna look over the past year plus or so of what pays and try to do a little bit of a lessons learned on some of our favorites, our highlight reel, our low light reel, and maybe what we can do going forward. And so this is a good opportunity for others in a similar vein to always stop and reflect, to think about how they could be better. Now, but before we do that, let's dive into the usual topic du jour, which is what problem are you solving this week? So let's start with Adam. What problem are you solving?
You always start with me.
But this week, we're going to start with you.
All right, promotion that doesn't count as a problem I'm solving is the pitch competition. I think we got it all figured out, so I'm going to post it in the chat. I think what problem I'm solving is very meta. It goes back to our roots. Ty and I even talked about some of this coaching stuff once a month when we're in between topics. So I think it's going to come up when we do our retro. But the problem I want to solve for us is getting more people to talk about the problem that they're trying to solve.
So, traction problem. There you go.
Not really attraction. It's more like a build in public. Nice. It's a mindset. This whole thing, I'm writing another little workbook on this exact thing. Like, this is more of a mindset thing. Like, you're just nobody. If you get people in a room like Rally, and you have 20 entrepreneurs and people's between peer pressure and energy and actually learning the system, you can get 20, 30, 40 people in 2 hours to talk about what problem they're solving. But if you really just still ask them, like there's I feel like no progress. Like I get the same answers in the same order that I got 15 years ago. So we'll see how much of that comes up in the retro. I don't know if that's our job. Maybe I think it is actually. I think it's our job to improve the answer to that question. It's different from customer discovery and getting evidence and picking the right assumption. I do think it's tied to the desirability assumption, but if you ask someone what problem you're solving, they will answer with what they're building. Like 90% of the time. There's just no movement at all with any of the design thinking, any of the college courses, any of this work.
Yeah, it's interesting.
There's no institutional shift on the answer to that question. And now maybe things are fine, and maybe we can examine whether there needs to be a shift or whether that's just being driven by VCs and pitch competitions, which we may cover a controversial, not ours, of course, but something going on out there. But yes, it is even with David's GPT. I had a GPT 10 years ago that's like, no, that's not the problem. That's the solution. There's zero movement. Mom Test, great book. Grant Cooper's stuff, great resources. We're using that in the pitch competition. iCore, decent stuff, especially for people with existing IP. But the answer to the question, what problem are you solving, has not improved at all in my anecdotal experience in 15 years. And I want that to change this year.
It's a noble goal. That is a tough problem to solve. All right, cool. Ty, what problem are you solving this week?
So I've been really trying to hone down. I have this new job, and at times, it speaks to something that Adam is working on, and that is certainty, right? I know that this will work, and to have a data-driven, evidence-based, data-driven decision model that says, "Great, how do you know?" Well, I just know. That have you tested this as any way that feels consistent with the science of building a good product. And we use science loosely. And so I've been really thinking about what does it look like to help myself think about some of these ideas and then bring them to something similar to what Adam is suggesting. Bring it up in a way that it becomes consumable for folks to kind of consider. Um, More succinctly, how do you um, separate solution from problems from problem to solution to product? I think they skip the solution, because what I say, I tell people your solution is not necessarily the same thing as your product. So I have a problem, I have a solution, but the thing that I build and take to market may not look the same. It may not end up being the same. Betamax, VHS, the ability to take movies, content, put it on a portable device that I don't have to sit in a movie theater to watch, and I can put it in something and I can watch it over and over again. The solution was this high-end thing that nobody could use. The lower end product that ended up actually going to market was VHS, because it beat it out for whatever reason. Market adoption, ease of use, lower technical barrier to get to, whatever it might be. But it was all the same, started with the same problem, but the solution and the product weren't necessarily the same. And so, the problem I've been thinking about a lot is, how do I help people? How do I articulate that in a way that it becomes really useful? That's one. I know we're only supposed to do one, but my second problem is, how do I market that information? I know it's my turn. How do I market that information so I can take use of it, personal use of it, go out and put my stuff out there? We have our podcast, but there's other things that are going on. There's other opportunities. It's a one A.
Nice. I'll allow it.
Thank you. How about you, John? What's going on with you?
So two things come to mind. I'll do two. No. First thing comes to mind is we have a new intern on our team, summer intern, and he's just been kind of going around doing little one-on-one chat sessions with everybody on our team. And he asked a really good question. He said, "What would you tell your 22-year-old self based on what you know or what you've learned in your career?" I was like, "That's an amazing question. That's really insightful, especially for a 22-year-old." And my immediate response to that was, keep doing exactly what you just did. Like, be curious, right? Because of the human psychology to always try to be right all the time. Like I said, if you can be curious and you can, when the room is going, this is the solution, and you can be the one to say, I just want to understand why, then you can certainly have different avenues exposed to you by doing that, instead of trying to just be right 100% of the time. Right. And so that is one thing I'm curious about, is how to be more curious, how to be more open in my divergent thinking. So that's one thing this week. It's just a personal one. Professionally, I heard an interesting quote. So this is my second one. You guys are bad influences. Professionally, I heard a good quote from Gary Vaynerchuk, a guy I like to follow on the internet. He's just like, if you're good at something, like, why would you do something else? Like, double down on what's working, right? And I'm getting a lot of traction lately to do more strategy workshops within my organization, and so like it's kind of coming to me. I'm not even trying to look for it, and I'm getting other organizations. Hey, can you do what you did for them for me? And I'm just trying to think of how can I continue to not avoid it, but embrace it and double down and start doing more of that. So that's been very exciting, especially when you see a demand signal, right?
I actually like it because I know you for now, let's see, it's well over 14 years. Your oldest is 14 years old.
That's right.
And knowing that you had this very, and this is not what I'm about to say may sound goofy or bad, but a very pedantic way of solving problems. Doom to doom to doom to doom.
Yep.
If it was like a very said, it was. I mean, you're the one that taught me about engineering diagrams. If the arrow doesn't go anywhere, if it goes back into itself, you have something wrong because there's no export. It's just a
Yep.
left-handed wind shifter, right? Um, that didn't do anything. Uh, but I really like the fact that you have taken the time to think about what it means to think, to explore ideas,
Mhm.
and to be okay with the uncertainty,
Yeah,
which I
I
think is
totally
a
agree.
pretty powerful
Which,
move.
which I guess already sounds like the theme of tonight's episode, right? Is how do you stop and think? Right? How do you stop and reflect and determine, you know, just because you are doing something doesn't mean it's the right thing, doesn't mean it's something that's viable. So yeah, this would be a good episode to kind of sit and talk about what are those things that we need to review. Right, Adam? See you adding some stuff in the chat here. You solve one problem, you solve the next one, and the next one.
I like to attach things to movie quotes, but I do think um, on the retro side, how do you know? It's not just if you're, the textbook answer is if you're making progress towards a goal, but it's not realistic. It's if you're enjoying it is
Oh,
some of
some
the
value.
equation, but
Mhm.
not all of it. And that part of the equation needs to be determined up front. So you can't just retroactively say, "Oh, I was having fun. That was the whole point." All so what is
Yeah.
that?
Oh, don't move the goalposts, right? Don't start.
Retrospective. What's the term?
Yeah, the retrospective. Yeah.
Coherent. Retrospective coherence.
It's interesting that this is a retrospective. One of the things that for retrospective, I think that I wish we would have covered a little bit more. And I think going into this next 12 months of this calendar year is is something close to the strategy of innovation. I'd be curious to, why did we look at that more intently? I just saw a post from Alex Osterwalder about how people actually go about using the business model canvas, and it was interesting because he was saying that people use it as a one-time map, and then they never go back and do it again. He's like, no, dude, this is a dynamic thing, which I know all three of us really foot stomp that if something changes here, you got to go back and rejigger your whole thing. And I think it's part and parcel that people do that because they double down on their strategy as if it is a certain thing. Amy Edmondson talks about strategy being an experiment. I've seen other people start to think about strategies being experiments. And one of the things I'm proud about what we did in a retrospective is that we experimented a little bit. I think we could experiment a little bit more. Um, Going in and really doing we ran an experiment, for instance, with bringing a founder in and just bringing like 8 people and everybody was talking at once, you know. But what if the experiment was three of us with a special guest and one other person? Because everybody who listens to us, they hear all three of us, they have another voice that we, either jives with us or does an not complete orthogonal, but does one of these from us could be really interesting. And then because that speaks about our strategy around differentiation, the thing that really differentiates us from other podcasts that are trying to do this the same work.
If we're brave enough, that does fit the format of things to do. So what is it? Working well, things that could be improved, suggestions for the future. We could do 3 minutes. We don't want to go too far, on live, but we could do one or two things each, and then we have a safe space to throw some ideas for next year on the parking lot without solutioning first. Even though, in full disclosure, in the way the real world works, I think both of us, all three of us, do want to. There's something to that live element. There's something obviously to asking founders that we deal with in our day jobs all the time. It's what we do, whether it's with corporates, governments, startups, podcast owners. It's all we do. It's been in my LinkedIn for 15 years now. What problem are you solving? I have Datacorn shirts. I need to get a couple of what problem are you solving shirts. But I I challenge us. We don't have to bring out sticky notes and open up a whiteboard, but John, if you want to moderate 2 minutes at a something we can get to, suggestions will be more fun if we do our homework. All right, I'll go first.
All right.
Take
I'll
it
make
away.
it easy.
Go for it.
What's working well? Guests, I think I think we've proven that people like to talk. This is a fun. Well, two things. Consistency. I remember like there's someone who posted something like a couple of years ago. Like if you do 100 shows, some famous person was like, "I'll come on your show no matter what," because it's so hard. So it sounds like a giveaway, but we hardly miss a week. Monday nights, we're here. We love this stuff. I do think that we get to put that in the box. We all have travel and kids and this and that. And consistency does mean something. It has to equate to something, but you have to start with consistency. And yes, to my second one for what's working well, the guests we've been able to talk to and learn from, and not just like the hot ones guy. I'm reminded of him. Like he had a different format. I don't know if our format's that much different, but I think our style is a little bit different. And just found something that worked. So those are my two that are working well. John, Ty, what's working well?
I think what's working well is not just not the guests, yes, but when I tried to get folks, oh wow, man, he just got a retro up. Oh my God.
Uh-oh.
We're actually eat our own cooking. Wow.
I shouldn't
How
have
about
poked the
that?
bear. I'm going home. I'm going
Don't
to bed,
tempt me
guys.
with a good time.
So, but reaching out to people like Tristan or David or hopefully Dan Toma and some other folks, getting them is one thing. We get good. I think we get good quality guests, and even some of the folks that you found, Adam. I really love the guy. God, what is his name? Who did the
Ernesto.
Ernesto? Loved Ernesto. I mean,
And
I've clipped that for my design thinking classes I do with when I do with students, my 1 day design thinking class with students. I think it's a powerful conversation and how to shut up and just listen, right? But I think the other thing that we do well is not just guests, but giving them the degrees of freedom to work inside the boundary of, hey, we're just trying to help people think about how to solve problems. How you go about doing that, whoever shows up, I think is a pretty powerful tool. Because when people say, so what's the topic? I'm like, whatever you want to talk about. Here's just the context in which we have these conversations. So I really think that we do well. And then you add on to that the conversations, the the three of us who have very different ways of talking about the world, um, and the way that we flow, and then pull people in and just have them a part of this conversation from wherever they're at. I think it's pretty cool. So those are the two things that it's not just the guests, but giving them really interesting guests and then giving them the space to really talk about what they think and not constrain them. That's what I think. How about you, John?
I
Where are you
captured
at?
that as cracking skulls open through insightful conversations.
Oh.
That's what's happening. That's what's going on. And that's really the secret sauce. That's what really was the genesis of this format here. Was Ty and I would just wax poetic sometimes, on the lull periods at work, and we get some people that would go, I never thought of that before, and that blew my mind. You're like, okay, that's cool, but like, now what? Like, how can we reach a wider audience? How can we share that better, right? So I think that's been helpful, is to encapsulate that those conversations somehow that we could replay and send out. And hey, if you want to hear about AI, we got an AI episode. You want to hear about Dan Ariely's work, like we got that covered, right? So yeah, so
Who,
definitely
who? who has the chutzpah to call up Dan Ireland and say, "Hey, listen, would you like to come on our podcast? Who are you guys? Well, we're just a bunch of three chuckleheads that like to talk about stuff, not solving problems." Okay,
Yeah.
I mean that's a pretty big pull. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? That's a pretty big pull.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
Although
And I think that's part of it too. Is authenticity. That's a big thing. Not only
I like
is
it.
it the consistency, but also the authenticity, right? Um, we're not actively trying to sell something. We're not actively trying to be smarmy or have a persona. It's who we are, and I think people respect that. That we're not trying to be something that we aren't. And if we don't know the answer, we don't know the answer, and we just stay curious and we stay in that space of being curious and trying to help. So I think authenticity is certainly um, part of the chemistry that keeps the show going.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. What was the second category?
Well,
What's
what could we do better?
ah?
What didn't go so well?
All right, I'll go because it's funny because it's the exact mirror image of what you were just saying, that we have something for every, like I think in the library, we've live, which is fun, it's necessary, dynamic, it's authentic, it's consistent. And then you have the library. And if you're building for a library and a YouTube algorithm and a Spotify algorithm, something for everyone works. My friend Craig Elias likes to talk about the F word, 4-letter. Oh no, it's not the 4-letter word. It's just the F word. Focus. I'll get to the punchline. Right. That's why I said not 4-letter, but still the F word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we have this amazingly interesting menagerie of startup audience, corporate audience, and this government piece. I don't think anyone's cracked the government piece, but we can't just go all in on it. But maybe we can't. Maybe we need to have brand it. I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone thinks that when they get big enough, they can just do everything and let the audience. But we teach beachhead markets. We teach focus.
Mm-hmm.
We teach customer segmentation. We are solving a different problem for each audience.
Right.
See, we're trying to eat our own dog food without embarrassing ourselves. So I'll keep it limited. But yeah, I think focus and segmentation could be, maybe not, but could at least be something we do better next year.
Mm-hmm.
If we had
fair.
if we had our own business, like we talk about what problem are we solving and trying to answer that, we have assumptions mapping. If we had a business model canvas, it's clear as day that those are three different audiences, and we have examples, not just guests, listeners, frequent, whether the diehards, but they're there. We have our friend Jen in the startup. All right, we don't have to start, but yeah, there's some very specific government people, some very specific corporate people, even the consultants. So that's even a fourth.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's our peers, government, corporate, startup. Even the startup people are different, early stage, later stage. You could resegment all that stuff. So yeah, I had one more, but this was the
You can always
express,
come back.
the express version.
The express version.
So
Ty?
so I just have a question, and I can go to mine. Is it that the segmentation, or is it the focus? And it's just that's just the thought that popped in my head because my sense is that people have at with different um, with different uh, parts of the market, right? Private, public, government, non, startup, whatever. They're all trying to figure out, as we said earlier, they're all creating solutions, but not really solving it. Don't really understand the problem. And so, how do we help them? How does this podcast help them really question the problem they're trying to solve? For me, even the people that I deal with every day, For instance, I'm saying things like, uh, uh, one of the things we're trying to solve is with the administration defunding a lot of the research, NIH, NSF research. How do you go about finding new forms of capital to do the research? And I'll go, it's not like a Moneyball problem to me because we're trying to, use problem solving techniques for industries and markets and industry markets and competitors that we think we're competing with, and we should never ever be competing with
No.
ever. There's no way a Bowie State University that has a endowment of about $30 million is going to compete with a Johns Hopkins, Mr. Ruark, that has an endowment of 10 or 12
Billions.
or $15 billion.
Yeah.
It's not even a rounding area. It's like, oh, we forgot to add that money over there kind of error.
Yeah.
All right. It's not even around. They're like, oh well. We'll make it up some other place. Somebody will just donate another $30 million.
Mm-hmm.
And so, are we helping people to understand the problem that they're trying to solve versus segmenting? That being said, I think one of the things we could do better is really articulating what that means. What does it mean to solve a problem? Like what? Because we've been talking about it for a year. Adam, and you've been posting on your LinkedIn account for over a decade. John and I have been, futzing around for this thing for, since way before COVID. And I'm like, so what does that mean? I mean, there's articles and articles written about, what problem are you solving, and books and whatnot. What does that mean? And so I think that what we could do, one, is really get focused on the on the core of the show, which is really helping people define the problem in a way that is both large enough to hold the space, but yet specific enough for them to move forward. Does that make sense what I said? Hold the space, but move forward. So it's like, oh, my problem is in this direction. Oh, see how I'm pointing is in this direction over here, and it's shaped like that. Great. What does that mean? I don't know. Cool. Come and have a conversation with us. That's one. The other one is just pure business. Like, I don't want to burden John with doing all of this work, right? I don't know. I don't know StreamYard, not that hard. But I asked John at one point, hey, could you put the name when you advertisement, if it is a really special guest, put that person's name in there. And he's like, okay, cool. And I thought about it. It's like, why haven't I either said anything earlier, right? Or why haven't I taken it over and figured out how to do that and relieve you of that burden? So, John, I'd love that that you do a great job producing the show, like the SteamYard and doing all that and figuring out how to go from this to hit the button so it pops out to Spotify. Love that part. But there are other parts of the business that I don't think that we have done as well.
Yeah,
We,
workload.
not you, we.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And because I think that we're missing. So when like uh, Jamar came on and worked with us, he was blown away. I could tell you right now, John, that Adam and I, he was like, "Oh my God, you guys are! Oh my God, y'all! Oh my God, y'all was doing that thing!" Like, thanks, bro. We've been at it for a year. But what that tells me is that we talk about segmentation. There's an audience out there that is like looking for this kind of stuff. How do we get? How do we improve that? I'm almost like, could we go find some like media like sophomore, like, hey, here's the list, create a thing, put it on the internet, on LinkedIn. All right. That's one. The other one is, and I'm sorry, so I get it off my head.
This is good.
Like an Instagram presence, right? And because my son hooked me up on Instagram, all of a sudden people like, yeah, I don't know if you guys like. So what's your Insta? Insta for me is like watching cat videos and stuff like that, right? But it seems to me there's a lot of Instagram opportunity, Instagram audience that's just not hearing what we have to say. That it would probably pop up into somebody's with the appropriate hashes, pop in somebody's algorithm and be like, "Yo, did y'all check out these dudes? They got some stuff going on over there." That's what I think.
No, that's good. That's good. Trying to think about what's working, where some areas of improvement there. I think I'll double down on that. And one thing that I've been thinking of is that this is a labor of love, and work leveling aside, like we really don't pay much attention to pirate metrics, right? Um, and that's okay, because I think what Adam said in the beginning was important. That consistency is key, right? It's something like
Well,
99.99% of
I,
podcasts
I knew this
die.
would come up, so I had to preempt it.
Yeah, you primed the pump, and I love it. Yeah, but yeah, most podcasts die after like 7 episodes. That's a statistical fact, right? So the fact that we've been doing this for a year, we're getting the bugs worked out, the chemistry has continued. I think that's an important part of that. Um, that has been part of what keeps this thing going. And so the next step, right, would be to really start to look at whether what are the other acquisition and activation type of channels, right? To say, well, let's experiment over here, let's experiment over there. Like, again, eat your own dog food, and in this way, really start to be less about um, just cranking out content instead, and then also add to that, because we can do that consistently. Now the next level is, is it getting to the right place? Is it getting to the eyeballs and the people that need to hear it, right? Or that care, or that get energized, like you said, Ty, that people get, oh, hey, this is cool. This is really, insightful. Um, so that's finding that target audience through consistent delivery of value. Yep. Oh, you're muted, Ty.
I just went quickly and looked at YouTube. We are up to, if you take the three of us out, because we're all just subscribed, we're at 47 people. And the fact that you said that after, what, 7 episodes, these things are like restaurants, they die,
Yeah.
right? They die. So I didn't realize that. That's a pretty good number.
Yeah, exactly. So we're in the top 1% just by existing and being stable and being stubborn, I guess. But if you haven't subscribed yet, youtube.com
That's right.
slash at what pays.
There
That'll
you
get you
go.
there.
Like and
At
subscribe.
what pays. Yeah.
Like,
Smash that
subscribe,
notification.
and tell everybody else.
Yeah, but
That's
that's
it.
why they say that. That's, in all seriousness, that's why it's such a trope now, is because the first 1,000 subscribers on YouTube is what just kicks you to a whole other gear, right? And that's why the first couple episodes, it's all about just like, subscribe, share content, comment, etc., because that's the only way YouTube, the algorithm, rewards content creators. Whether or not you're good or not, that's a completely different thing, right? You can be the best person talking to yourself.
So you going on record? Is that our goal? Is it 1,000? Is it 1,000 subscribers with this time next year?
If that is our YouTube content strategy, that's a
Right.
different number for different platforms, right?
Sure.
So
But for YouTube, if we sat down and changed this from, should do a retro once a quarter, certainly once a year, and then big room planning, same, one quarterly or yearly at the minimum. So if we then switch to OKRs, 1,000 on YouTube specifically, with then some of the KPIs being shorts and updating, blah blah blah, and is that around
that's
what
how
that
you
would
would
look?
do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you could say, let's just pull that thread, right? If you were to build an OKR out of that, if the goal was 1,000, you'd say, by this quarter, I want 250, and here are the things I'm going to do to get that 250, and here's how I'm going to measure it, right? And that's an easy key result to build, right? By next month, I'll have 250 divided by 3. Just let's round it to 300, right? I'll say I'll have 100 more this month, 100 more next month, and then I
I
can
think the
tell
O
if
the O is easy, but the KRs and like specifically with duration and guests and
sure,
how aggressively you
exactly.
share, and like you can get pretty experimental on that piece.
Oh yeah, yep, agreed. Right, and
Hey,
it seems like self-promoting, but that's the point. Is like you need to do a little bit of that self-promoting just to kick the algorithm in. Yep.
so here's a thought, and I'd love to get your opinion about it. So if that's the case, so the next thing is what actions do we need to take, right? So what didn't go well, what are the next actions? And so here's an action item. DC Startup Tech Week is looking for speakers. October. I can put us in so I was going to do last year. I did a presentation on the business on the mission model canvas. Right. I mean, I literally had like 50 minutes, so it wasn't a whole lot that I could do. But DC Startup Tech Week, they're looking for panels, and I could put us in for a panel called "What Problem Are You Solving?" Right. For the with the team from the What Problem Are You Solving podcast, and so if we could do problems, OKR, PKIs, and talk about it, and then literally pull people up like we did in Dallas, Adam, where people are actually getting in the moment consultation from the three of us because they have to stand up, raise their hand, and say, "Well, this is who I'm." Great, and then I had fun moderating it because I thought it was a way for me to balance Johnny, you see Adam and Jamar, their conversation going back and forth, that I could jump in and like, so what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? And it was absolutely fun.
See
So
you tomorrow.
maybe,
See you tomorrow, Gamar.
uh,
Don't forget about our meeting, Ty.
oh yeah, tomorrow. I'm on there. And so I think I would propose that would be one of the things that we could actually do. Um, we could actually go to DC Startup Tech Week, and I'll send you all the Airtable right now so you could actually see it. So in the moment, that's one thing that we could do is to it's the DC Startup and Tech Week 2025 for October 20 through 24. That we actually do a panel like we did at Good Soil. Do it for problem.
Yeah.
Started with what pays problem, what pays team, looking at what problem you're solving, PKIs to OKRs to success or something.
Interesting. Yeah, something like that. I like that. Mm-hmm.
And the reason is you'll have probably because we could have a good panel, like a front stage panel, and I'll kick it out for that. Do you know Seema Alexander? Does that name ring a bell, Adam? Seema. All right. She actually started DC Startup and Tech Week. Look, Seema, hook us up. We've already done this. You know me. Let's just make it happen. Right? Talking out the side of my neck, but I think that it would be that way that we get more people as an action to get traction. People actually see what we're doing.
So I added, just leveraging network. So that's again double down on what works. Between the three of us, we have a good network, and I think that there's things that we could do to leverage that even further, right? To bring more awareness to what we have to offer. I don't think we're leveraging that quite enough.
Yep.
So what else should we do better next time? Thank you. Here's what went well, what didn't go so well. What else can we do with that? What else can we improve on? What else can we take an action to do something different for the next time?
The play on, the natural follow on, Ty set me up because we did talk about this last week while you were hanging out with the fam. Well-deserved trip, and that was offline. But yes, I think whether it's in person or not, or synchronous or not, obviously in-person synchronous is the ideal way to get 30 people to play off each other and start to see how it goes around the room, learn from their mistakes, and by the 30th person, they have learned literally by repetition and observation, and just not, it's fine to be wrong, get the format wrong first when you're expected to be wrong, and everyone knows that I sort of expect them to be wrong, but by the 30th person, there is sort of this magical journey, when you do it live, like at a rally. Good Soil was a little bit different. It was designed differently. But back to rally, people think when we pitch them, if your friend is listening, like just what problem are you solving alone can fill a panel. There doesn't need to be any other content. If you have 30 to 50 to 75 people in the room and 30 people are willing to participate, the journey of going from pitching your solution to sort of pitching your problem, to then pitching a customer's problem, to then pitching a specific customer's problem. Designing an experiment is a whole new workshop, but just being able to frame a specific problem for a specific person in sort of 30-second back and forth increments. So yes to Tech Week, Summerfest, Good Soil, Rally. Like, I think that is a staple thing. Or coming in now, still synchronous. I've run for Founders Institute, for all these, plenty of still synchronous, but not in-person sessions where it is literally just that. What problem are you solving? 3 of us come in. Maybe it's not Monday night, but instead of mentoring for free, you want to talk about customer discovery or research, UX technique? No, it's a lot. It's a podcast. And we've talked about that. Like, that is the one thing. And everyone in the chat or live has to go through that exercise. Same way we demand a business model canvas. We know the form. We're just still a little timid, or we just don't want to debate people over and over again. But I do think we're ready to demand that. Like, no, like, yes, I'll still mentor for free, but if you want a session on customer discovery for 80 people, 2 of which are going to really go and do interviews, like, I want to see all 80 people participating in the chat. I want to see it up front, even in writing, asynchronously, then synchronously when we're there, which then segues to our own. We have control. Like, Founders Institute we don't have access to what Founders Institute, Techstars, even Google does. But for the one spot a month that we do bring someone on the show to coach, every episode, I want to spend 5 minutes going through, whether it's YouTube Shorts or just in the comments. Write it down. Write it down now, even if you're listening. Like, one person, what actual problem, even someone who applied to the competition, and we'll talk about that separately, asking them in public, like, what problem are you solving? Like, there's just, they freeze up. They just don't want to write it down. So I think, yes, there's this trajectory from, again, whether it's Blue Sky or LinkedIn or sending yourself an email, but writing it down. What problem are you solving? Who's your customer? Workshopping it in public, so other people can benefit and see the evolution of how 90% of the time it goes from a generic solution, to sort of a problem, to a specific problem with a generic customer, to a specific problem with a specific customer that has a knowable, is that really a problem for them?
Yeah, I kind of categorize that as like brand awareness, like, because you were talking about, I think, in the green rooms, like, if we could just get people to really understand the concept of figuring out what problem they're solving, like that, we die happy men, right? That would be the success criteria there. And there's, like with David Bland doing testing assumptions, like, that's his shtick.
So that's what I was going to say. Yeah, tune in next week. So I agree with that. I think it's gotten to that point where, like, whether he invented it or not, like, I'm not getting into the politics, but he gets assumptions right now. Like, he wins assumptions. And so what problem solving is our solution. But, like, because even the business model canvas doesn't have a section for, it has customer and value proposition, but value proposition is already solution based. And so value proposition canvas sort of does, Ash's leaner canvas does, for full stop. We'll give him credit, but, like, I don't even know who's leaning into it. And is it because it's not a problem, or is it because the universe is really saying that really should be the only question we ask, and do enforce an answer to that question, for anything. I mean, we do it as, it's not a joke, it's serious, but, like,
right,
we remind ourselves to think that way. But yeah, I think having someone live and enforcing it in the chats of people that come on but yes, having one person to come on, but the way you came on is you put it in a show's comment section. So if anyone wants to come on for for the show, we'll ask
So,
John
John,
for permission next time, but for this time, we're asking for forgiveness. If anyone wants to come on in July, in August, write down what problem you are solving in the comments.
So, John, I appreciate your brand. I think how you articulate is brand awareness.
Mhm.
Offer how do you offer awareness? Brand awareness
Both, yeah.
is
Mhm.
that is that different than because when I think brand offer, I'm thinking about the show. But I think the thing that to Adam's point and to my point earlier is really getting articulate around what this idea of a problem to be solved. Really, really I don't want to say science it, but really have our own definition. Like we take the time to define what that means as we understand it. What
Right.
is how do you go about finding that? The thing that pops in my head is if you assume that's the right solution, what must be true? Which is the predicate of what
Mhm.
must be true is an understanding of the problem. And if you don't have that, if you don't have the what must be true to establish that solution, then your predicate is off,
Right.
right? Well,
Mhm.
I gotta have that. Do you have that? No. Why don't you have it? Because I don't have that. You think you might want to solve that first?
Right.
You might want to have a conversation about that with yourself first before you start going upstream. Like what's in the where's the genesis of all this? Where did
Mhm.
it well, before you go downstream, what's the genesis of this? Where did it start? So for me, I think one of the things that I would like to see that we could do better is to have a better definition, working intellectual capital around this idea of the problem or what problem you solve. And it doesn't have to be right, but it feels like if we could have it a little more solid, then I could wrap my head around. One of the other things as an action or to take in this future, and it's John, you said this labor of love. Uh, by the way, Jeremiah's back from he's back from Seoul, Korea.
Wow.
Had an interesting time. More to come in a later time or offline. But I I got the youngest boy, Joshua was here in the house, and he's doing whatever he has to do, and they're both on their way. You have five, you have two. Mine are about to become adults. Labor of love is cool. Labor of love that gets you paid is even better.
Right.
And
Mhm.
so, and the monetization models aren't they're intellectual exercises for time. They're not practiced exercises for time because I'll have these conversations all night long. Hey, you got a thought? Yeah. How do I charge for 15 minutes of a thought? I don't know. People do.
Mhm.
Obviously, that's how lawyers make money. They
Right.
charge fractions of hours. But I think one of the things that we need to do, to your point, Adam, is the commitment on the part of the people that we're trying to help, either in a labor, put it in the chat, or actually giving us capital, shows a commitment to the ideas that we have, right? And so I would like to see in the future, how do we take it beyond this two dimension that we can actually move it into three dimension. I would love for us to do DC Star Protect Week. That the three of us get together and we get because they'll give us like an hour. Like here's an hour, and we're gonna run a panel and we're gonna crush it. That people are like, and who are you guys again? I'd love to be able to do that. As a matter of fact, Adam, I had somebody reach out to me from Dallas and said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" I don't even know. I think she may have been in the room. I don't even remember. I don't remember where she was. But to have that follow on is cool. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I think working on that more would be monetization, and a more we own our intellectual horsepower around this idea of the problem to be solved.
You mean what pays?
Yep, yep.
Thought so. Thought you
Nice
might
way to
have.
So
wrap it up.
we monetize what pays, but we have more intellectual that we have some capital that we own, some IP that we own. Because if they associate, assumptions with David, like you said, should they associate, man, them guys really helped me think through this problem.
Nice.
I would
I
love
like
to be
it.
able to do more of that.
I think that was great. Yeah, we could probably go on and on for another hour or so about that, but I think you also get diminishing returns. So those are some
Yeah.
good ideas. Some things I'm sure we've saved for offline as well. But it's always good. I'm a huge fan of stopping to reflect as early as possible. Some people like to do it in the agile way and do it at the end of every 2 weeks or end of every week or every night. But whatever you do, pick a time to do it and do it, because there's certainly a lot of value in stopping to see what's going well and what isn't going well. Right, Adam?
And then combining it with, did you know I was going to say something?
I did.
You got baited, man. He just say, "Come on, Adam. I know you got an idea. Watch this."
Yeah, I think marrying it with some proactive, whether it's planning, it doesn't have to be OKRs. Our friend Diego with 2GI. We'll drop. That was also a rally friend. They ran not pivot, persevere, but like continue, double down, pause, continue, like act proactive. It's sort of just a prioritization exercise, but forcing yourself to even continue something is a decision. And so like stop, continue, or prioritize, I guess. I forgot. But the point is, just because you're doing something, forcing yourself to continue it, or like as if you're starting it over, is a huge deal based on the retro, not just going through the retro as a matter of fact. And again, we all do it.
100%. Yeah.
We all do it. It's natural, but trying at least to have the retro inform.
No, that's a really good observation, right? Do it as an actual reset. Like if you were to start over day zero, what would you do differently? And that's certainly the mindset that needs to happen, instead of just, oh, I should lose weight. I should exercise more. Like, okay, yes, everybody knows that. Like, what are you actually going to do differently next time?
And I think like a roadmap, like keeping a prioritized roadmap, is because we don't always run experiments. We don't always like actively map our assumptions, but people do have roadmap, and like by actively just reordering it
Yeah.
once a week or once a month, or noticing like if something shifts to the bottom of a Trello board, it just automatically gets deleted until you put it back on there. Or it floats to the top. The more comments it has, the more of an actual, you taught me, like putting an actual due date, just that bit of flair on a Trello card says it's more important. Or if 2 team members comment on it, that means it's more important. Like little rules like that, that force prioritization, even before you formally do a risky assumption, or before you design an experiment, or before you try to document your learning, like all these things need to happen. Like sometimes you need to go all in on one thing, but this is the situation. You need a little bit of everything in this. You need a little bit of prioritization, a little bit of learning, a little bit of like you do need that through line. Even if you do one thing very well, it doesn't work.
Nice. Totally agree. All right, Adam, I think was there one more topic you wanted to bring up?
Sunscreen.
Awesome. Always wear your sunscreen. Yep. So Matthew, give a shout out to Matthew. This is a good conversation. Do you guys prefer to stream on LinkedIn for these type of discussions? Yeah. So we do LinkedIn, we do YouTube as well. So those are the big two.
Well, ask him what problem he's solving. We got someone? I don't see it on the show. All right, ask him what problem he's solving.
What problem are you solving, Matthew? Make Adam happy. While you're writing that, last topic. Go ahead, Adam.
All right, so I feel like there's no. I'm just on a delay. So there's like sort of 3 categories of stuff, right? There's, when we were talking about retros, like I like to call it innovation meditation, where you're pausing and recognizing, like stop and observe, then act. So you have the one side where you have a solution and you're trying to figure out like, okay, what problem did this solve? Like, so you have a product in your house that is like, all right, what problem did this actually solve? So that was kind of fun. But then there's another one, noticing your own frustration. So you notice the problem, and then you watch your, like, do you go then go buy something, or you just deal with the solution? Does that make sense? Those two categories at least make sense?
Say them again.
All right. So the problem, like, where did he go? All right, he scared me for a second. I hate it when he disappears. All right. So I'll give you the actual, no, it's come back. Oh, it's killing. That's like how you feel when we start late. That's how I feel when you disappear.
Okay, good. I know how to push your buttons now. Keep going.
All right, here's the actual example, and then we'll break these down. So the problem, the annoyance, the thing that like people are looking for when they're doing an observation or an interview doesn't necessarily require a solution, but there's at least a bit of a problem. There's a there. So I was trying to get the sunscreen out of the tube, and there's like a little bit left. I was like, do I cut it open? Do I squeeze it? Do I just throw it out? Like, what do I do? Right. So that, when we ask, and this actually feeds in kind of nicely to like, you know, how do you define it? Like, what's the IP associated with it? Like, there needs to be some level of frustration to at least attack. Like, that's the problem I'm trying to solve. Now, whether someone's going to buy new sunscreen and new packaging, who's the customer? Is it the packaging person? Is it the brand? Is it, you know, the store? Is it some, you know, sun bum, whatever? But like, if there was an easier, you know, if it was the same brand with like, I like the stick better than I like the cream, because so I actually might. So it is a problem worth solving, but just like being able to define it before the solution, before the actual, and then being able to like articulate. It's not just about sunscreen. This is like a jobs to be done kind of, but not even. It's beyond that, because you're not, you know, what you're hiring, you know, the sunscreen to do. So that's obvious. They get credit for that, just like David gets assumptions. So it's not necessarily a job to be done. It is, what problem are you solving? It is beyond what you're hiring sunscreen to do, right? So like, you know, if the stuff smells like coconuts or something, you know, like there's all then that gets into the features and what I'm willing to trade off to deal with like an annoying container. Happens with ketchup, you know, ketchup is, you can, you know, it happens a lot. So
problem to be solved.
We just coined a new one. Instead of JTBD, it's PTBS.
It's what pays. Stop.
So here's the image that popped in my mind as you were talking about is if we do, it's probably 4 dials, but I can think of 3, maybe a 4th one. Feasible, viable, desirable, usable, right? The dials, and that you're always trying to figure out the specific turns of the dials to go, that's the problem. And here's why I say that, for a couple of reasons. One, if you could not do that, if it was because problems in and of themselves are anxiety producing, they can be debilitating. What's the word I'm looking at? Debilitating, right? And that we humans do things to reduce the amount of anxiety associated with solving a problem. It is natural. Babies self-soothe. They stick their fingers in their mouth because something's not happening. And so they haven't been able to solve all the problems, but they've at least solved that problem, the self-soothe problems. And so maybe, again, it's not jobs to be done, because job to be done doesn't speak to Adam's frustration of getting the tube out, to get the stuff out of the tube, because that wasn't the problem you were trying to solve, particularly if you were trying to make sure that your kids were covered, or you were covered, or somebody that you were utilizing the cream to solve a problem but I could not get the rest of it out. And now I'm pissed off because the job that made me, the thing that I thought the problem I was solving, which was making sure I was covered or my child was covered, somebody was covered with this sunscreen, I now can't do it. and now my anxiety starts to rise.
So,
Start
but
to go
it
through.
didn't. So this is,
So why were you worried about it?
I wasn't. So this is, there
Why
were
why were we
two,
talking about it?
there were two reasons I brought this up to really get into the job I was trying to do, but also because 80% of the problems we hear are overestimated and don't require solutions. So I wanted to bring up this specific because like it was annoying for a second. And as I said, if someone interviewed me about my problems with sunscreen, it might have surfaced. And if they observed me, they wouldn't have even noticed that I was, because there's 20 other sunscreens in there. It's a little bit annoying, but I didn't get sunburn. I still found another stick, and we did have another. So it was two things. It's to understand, like, is it the job to be done, like that they're covered, that the kids are covered? But yes, it's also to prove that point of like, without any observable pain, there's no product. But even with it, it's not enough. Like most people are not going to change their behavior.
Tolerate it because the switching is
The switching, yeah. So that's the piece that I also wanted. Like, yes, there are some people who are super annoying, and that would be like, so that gets back to the segmentation where it does give them anxiety, and they think it's a waste, which I also think something like sprays and all that's plastic and all that. I think it should just be in soap or like, take a pill or I don't know, or like wear a shirt or a hat or something instead. I don't know. But so that's another reason I wanted to bring it up, because then even if the problem exists, there are other solutions other than just a better plastic tube in the first place. But we're way too late on this conversation. The point is, there's a category of noticing, which is noticing when you're frustrated and what you do about it, whether you do instantly go try to solve the problem, whether you're fine, like it causes anxiety for 10 seconds, and then you go to the beach and you don't give it what do you call it, sugar honey iced tea or something?
Yeah, sugar honey iced tea. Yeah, you can say it because it was on not Zootopia. What was the Madagascar?
Yeah. So just the idea, whether it's sunscreen or not, like just noticing yourself, what you do, like, because that's how other people are going to respond to the problem you're trying to solve. They don't care, and they're not going to just instantly change unless it's a huge problem. They're not going to change their day. They're going to be annoyed for a split second and they're going to forget about it. Some people, but then some people are. So you have to solve both the problem and then the customer who has it. That was the first thing. So it was the problem without even knowing about a solution. And then doing the reverse exercise. So like a bug bite injector thing showed up in my house. So that's the opposite. It's like no one was talking about getting stung by mosquitoes, and then it was the solution for the problem is so big, so obvious, so known that like some influencer or someone on Instagram like talking about this. I'll find out for the next episode how we even got a reverse injector. What's a reverse injector called? An extractor? Venom.
Suck the enzyme out, mosquito enzyme.
So don't tell my kid, there's no way this thing works, but like it's the reverse. We had a physical thing, but because the problem itself is actually so known and established, and that's very rare. I think there are very few things like that in the world even, but mosquitoes are one of those things. That even the idea of solving the problem in a novel way, that's kind of fun. Like, so I just wanted to frame those two fun 4th of July things for this episode.
Like that.
You have the problem and just the observation, how much stress does it actually cause? What behaviors do you take without necessarily the solution? And then you have this solution, and then trying to find, okay, is it, because it doesn't solve the annoyance of being outside and getting bitten. It does not solve that problem, and that's still annoying. So like this, it just solves this coming home and being itchy problem. So it again, it might sound like overkill, but I do think the exercise is useful.
This is an amazing. I know we're running out of time. I want to acknowledge that Matthew put in some ideas about, and he's up there with you, Adam, by the way. I think he's in Detroit. But I find this conversation to be absolutely fascinating as a person who looks at uh, the psychology of the individual and has been studying it for 30 years and still trying to figure it out. But the psychology of the individual and how they manage their lives based on precipitating events like I'm frustrated. And these things kind of they cascade into people finding things to relieve the frustration. And I mean, you said it several times. So I think that there's a lot of agreement in your former conversation about what happens. It wasn't large enough for the toothpaste, but or not toothpaste, the sunscreen, but you noticed. I think toothpaste is it's a very similar thing, right? But you noticed that there was a point of like a spike of desperation or a spike of frustration, a spike of anxiety, whatever, maybe not for the sunscreen, but there's these spikes. And maybe what we're talking about, what problem you're solving, is helping people learn to pay attention either in themselves or other people's when they have these spikes of emotional something happens that is a precipitating event that makes them go, I don't know about you, but I've said to people, the best time to solve a problem is when you hear somebody go, man, I wish somebody would. Bing. Now I'm on to something. I'm just going to watch other people saying, I wish somebody would, because there was a spike of something. And so I appreciate you being really articulate about that.
Yeah, that's a great example. So yeah, I think that summarizes again how we could do better explaining the offer of solving that problem, what that does for people.
Speaking of doing better, I have two feeds going. So Matt, what's up? I know it's you. We'll swing back to Matthew. But
you follow up with Matt.
I was experimenting with this stream to your audience, so now I think I have a duplicate post.
Excellent.
What problem am I solving? Am I going to do anything to fix that problem? No, I'll probably just have now two feeds on this from now on.
Good stuff.
All right, I think Matt would be a good person to bring on to bring that one individual that have that kind of unpack that problem.
Agreed.
You check the box. Good stuff.
Yes,
all right, let's bring it home.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you all. Keep crushing it. Let's do this for another year. Let's keep going.
Yeah, love it.
Go crush it.
Hey guys, I really appreciate both of you.
Likewise. Have a good one.
All right.